Today I wanted to talk about the book Women Who Run with Wolves by Clarissa Pinkola Estés. And I have been reading so many books lately that have been invigorating and enlightening, but this book feels truly profound. Like, I feel like it has unlocked something inside of me. Lately I've been deeply intrigued by energetics and mysticisms, because they all really translate and connect to being a creative, and it connects to the creative energy and creative process, whether you're a painter, filmmaker, photographer, filmmaker, whatever. And I have been listening and re-listening to the audiobook multiple times since I've finished it. So there's so much I want to unpack, so let's get into it. The book Women Who Run with Wolves describes the wild woman archetype, and Clarissa Pinkola Estés uses Mexican folklore to describe the why behind her feelings, her thoughts, and behavior. She starts the book by saying, "Wolves and women have been tarred by the same brush. They're supposed to be cunning, treacherous, and untrustworthy." And for me, when I hear this, I often think of stories as a way to come into yourself, coming to an understanding of something that is unknown, but it still feels familiar. It's almost like a remembrance. And I feel like a wild woman, y'all. The desire to be creative and primitive and unconventional. We'll unpack that later. So, likened to the wolf, the wild woman's attraction to freedom is often dubbed with this negative connotation, similar to the wolf, similar to how society is wary to wolves. Society is also wary to the way women who are attracted to freedom and searches and desires that. And it made me think, from whose lens are women cunning, treacherous, and untrustworthy? From whose lens? And it's twofold, and I just kind of moved the table there, but it's twofold in a patriarchal society where you kind of hear all the time, women are petty, women are catty, women are untrustworthy, women are backstabbing, they're two-faced. But the thing about stories, especially stories in the way that they're told now in society, they only show one half of the equation, and the narrative that women are untrustworthy. I feel like it rings true to the experience of someone who's only been wounded by women and hurt by women and have never been healed by women or held by women or truly experienced the full richness of the divine feminine. And I feel like beings who understand the fullness of that behavior, understand their direct correlation and their link to how women tap into their creative energy, their sensuality, their life force, literally. An activist, Audre also speaks on this in her essay called Uses of the Erotic. It's literally one of my favorite essays and articulations of this energy. But she goes on to say something like, "The erotic is a resource within each of us that lies in a deeply female and spiritual plane, firmly rooted in the power of our unexpressed or unrecognized feelings. For women, this has meant a suppression of the erotic as the considered source of power and information within our lives." And then she goes on to say, "We have been taught to be suspect of this resource. We vilify and abuse it and devalue it within the Western society." It kind of shows up as the way women's desire to be sensual and creative gets misconstrued with sexual. It's very akin to the way jealous and controlling men view women's expression of sensuality and misconstrued as sexualization, because they don't know how to honor that. They don't understand that. They only understand it through the lens in which it serves them, and not the multi-dimensions of its purpose, which is to be sensual and creative. That is a part of the feminine. But I think men who are wounded by the feminine, whether it's their mom or another woman in their life, seek to control and dominate that as a way to regain power over the wound inside of themselves, which, that's another topic for another day, and that's no one's responsibility except theirs. But I just think that's a thing that women like Audre Lorde and Clarissa Pinkola Estés were really onto here in deeply describing that energy source and all of its multifacets. And Audre Lorde is talking about that desire of creative life force, which lies and exists in sexuality, but it doesn't only manifest through sexuality. But I want to talk about another quote that Estés brings up here. She says this: "But the aspect of the wolf that the wild woman relies on is the idea of freedom.
The idea of being unspoiled and having rhythms that are uninterrupted by overdoses of the intellect.
When I coach women writers, and what I see with them and also within myself is that we tend to overthink. We are so intelligent that we tend to overthink. So much so that we don't lean into that messy, imperfect parts of creation. Almost like believe we can just think ourselves past perfection and into the destination. Like this sense of urgency, feeling like we're running out of time or feeling like there is no more time. And something with creation that I think is becoming increasingly difficult since COVID and lockdowns is to be present. Like never ending multi-dimensional facets of stimulation and surplus of dopamine, we all kind of like short circuit when we don't feel like we've arrived at the result yet. Like we don't have markers or rhythms to follow anymore that truly cater to our curiosity and our wonder. They're all to produce towards capitalism, which I'll talk about another time. But we don't have designated times to build on our curiosity or build into the things that may not be perfect yet because we deem it as a waste of time or not worthwhile. So when I was like really sitting back and thinking about all this, I was like, wow, like the wild woman really like seeks to like push this energy throughout her life. Like it's almost like you can't comprehend life without that level of mysticism, without that level of curiosity, without the level of wonder. Like it's like, what? We don't get that. We don't get a life without that. And she also like kind of gets into this storyline about this woman who feels like life, a perfect life, a good life is an elegant life to hop on a train to Chicago. And then she tells the story. And I really recommend you listening to the story. I'm like paraphrasing it. She marries like a nice man and they live into like a nice country farmhouse, and she lives the scripted, regimented, like life that seems good and wholesome and right, like, but then it ends with her abruptly ending her life, and then you're kind of like surprise Pikachu. The way that she tells the story that insinuates to me that women, it's not that women don't want like a stable life, it's just they probably, like a wild woman doesn't probably yearn for like a completely tamed one, like one that is full of all of the enveloping of themselves. Does that make sense? Like provocation of herself, and not in like a selfish, narcissistic way that like society likes to make it seem like it is all the time, which I don't. Anyway, I have a lot of feelings about that, but
you always have to allow yourself innovation. So for instance, if you decided that you wanted to have your law degree in 3 years, you have to make adaptations to become innovative instead of being martyred by it. You see, if you're connected to the instinctual self, you always have at least 3 choices. You have the 2 opposites and then the middle ground. If you're not connected, then you always have 1 choice, and it's a yucky one. And you feel like you should suffer by it.
And this like resonates so much with my own personal journey in terms of like what I feel like I'm capable of, what I feel like I can reach for, and what society demonizes as wrong, like, or what I should or shouldn't do. It just has really awakened so much internally that like, oh, this is like something that feels a lot more deeper, a lot more aligned, a lot more like passionate and guided. Systems like public school that kind of like drill the creativity out of us, right? When we don't reach like a certain mark or performance mark, it kind of kills our momentum. We take it as a message about who we are, our dreams, and what we are capable of achieving in life. And as a coach, like, I'm like, you can reach for the stars, baby. But, society really does a good job of like disciplining that out of us and killing dreams or making a mockery of dreams. Again, like that theme of like the mystic, the unknown, and what feels unattainable and out of reach. They kind of like systematically take that away from us. She talks a lot about being in tune with your intuitive energy and alchemizing your pain. She talks about the mistaken zygote and how families can feel like deserts, and really taught me how to be in direct communication with what you're wrestling with, what your emotions are telling you, what your body is signaling to you, that our society often encourages us to ignore, to suppress, to deny. And it really showed me that in being daring, in being bold, and in being creative, you have to be eccentric and weird and misunderstood, because that's in tune with the energetic creative field. Energy, it really like helped me understand how like creation and being creative is like a spiritual journey, and also really like helped me ground myself in the fact that I am an extension of nature. I am also like the divine and like a creation in myself, and how my own process into evolution and expansion is messy, it doesn't make sense, and is chaotic, but like that is exactly how it's supposed to be, and our society just conditioned us to that is like crazy. Anyway, I really loved this book, and it was like deeply fulfilling, and it deeply just made sense to a lot of like what it means to be in tune with that creative energy. Like, encourage anyone who's like into stuff like that to read it. Thanks so much, guys, for speaking with me, chatting and hanging out with me. And let me know what you liked about this video, and if I made more videos that talked about different books like this, or what other videos you'd like to see next. Thanks, guys. Bye.